Hey everybody, Lucas Sater here. I hope you're having a wonderful day wherever it is that you're watching this video from. In this video, I'm going to break down and explain the show intro that I produced and arranged for Lil Uzi Vert's Tidal Livestream that he did back in 2020. But before I do that, I want to take a moment to explain why, as music directors, we create show intros and how I go about thinking through the process and building one out, so that not only you can take from this video the specific things that I did for this performance, but that you can use it when you're creating your own show intros for whatever it is that you're working on. So, why do we do show intros in the first place? Well, the way I look at shows or concerts is I look at it as an experience, almost like a movie. If you think about your favorite movie that you love, when you press play or when you go to a movie theater to watch it, and the lights come down and the movie starts, the main character doesn't just appear on the screen and starts talking. There's usually some sort of introductory period in the movie that sets you in the place and time that the movie is taking place. For example, if you're watching a Christmas movie, that may be some snow falling and there's Christmas trees everywhere. Or if you're watching a horror film, maybe it's, it starts off with some creepy dungeon and some eerie music playing in the background. And that's kind of how I see concerts. It's an experience. There's a start, a middle, and an end, and there's an arc to it. And we have to sort of ease the crowd into it and sort of build suspense with show intros and get them hyped up, so when the artist comes out, they're ready to go and they're having a good time and they're in that moment. Now that we talked about that, I want to give you a little bit of a breakdown of the process that I think about when I'm creating these intros, because not every show is the same, not every artist is the same, and there's a lot of variables and things to think through on a case-by-case basis. So the first thing that I think about when doing one of these is, do I have, what is the context of what I'm doing? And what are the tools that I have to create this? For example, is there a band? Or is the artist just playing to tracks? What style of music is it? Do we also have video to go along with the show intro? All of that matters. For example, with video, there's a lot more that you can get away with and do because it's something else to sort of keep the audience engaged in. I also think about, is the artist the headliner, or is the artist opening the show for another headliner and doing direct support? So those things are all things to keep in mind. And before I start anything, I always reach out to the artist or to the creative director, and I ask them, how long were you thinking that this intro needs to be? Depending, if you on a typical basis, if you don't have any video, I usually keep it maybe between 30 to 45 seconds. If there is some sort of video content, we can go a lot longer. I've seen show intros be anywhere from 30 seconds to 5 minutes. Again, it all depends on the context. And I also like to know what the first song of the set is going to be, because I want to make sure that it transitions in a smooth way, in a way that is appealing to an audience, like you're telling a story, right? If I'm telling you a story and I'm talking about how I just went on vacation, then all of a sudden I start talking about new furniture that I got without any context, you're going to think that's a little weird, right? Kind of the same thing with the show intro. It has to sort of make sense. I like to usually keep it in the same key if possible. I also like to see if I can use elements from the first song to sprinkle in there, so it kind of like starts off and you're hearing these things, but you don't know exactly what it is, and then it morphs into the first song. And keep it, in a cohesive manner. We never want the audience to be jarred and be like, what just happened? And when you're creating intros or transitions in general, or anything within the show, if you go from something that is in one tempo or one genre right into another without any context, it can be a little jarring and it takes the audience away from the experience. And you never want to do that. You want to keep us when those lights go down and they hear the first things they hear through the PA come in and they know the show is starting. You want them to be immersed and you want them to always be engaged with the artist. And that's what I strive for. So without any further ado, now that we've talked about that, let's dive into the session and we're going to break this one down step by step. All right, y'all, let's dig into this one. So I started this one out with this low rumbling drone effect. So I'll play that for you so you can listen to it and hear it by itself. Okay, so something like this, like a sub type thing in an intro, works really, really well when you're doing a live show because you're listening to it on these massive speakers with a sub. And when you hear it, you know, as the audience's perspective, lights go down and this thing comes on and it just makes everybody kind of go crazy because you feel it in your chest and you know that the show is starting. But something that I had to keep in mind when doing this is this was a live stream. So I knew that no one was going to be listening to this on massive PA speakers, right? So something important to think about every time you're doing any show or anything like that is how are people going to be consuming this? Because this is not going to cut through, or just a low rumbling drone is not going to cut through people's AirPods or their laptop speakers, or maybe even sometimes their computer speakers. So I had to make sure that this sample or this sound that I found had higher frequencies that would cut through. So, because if you were just listening to this and there was no high frequencies, or higher frequencies, I should say, you wouldn't be able to hear this and it would kind of sound like it was silent. But let's listen to it again and you can hear it, how it's not just a very low thing. There's other rumbling, higher sounds in there. Check it out. So that cuts through AirPods and phones and all that stuff. So I knew I was good and ready to go there. So this first section is basically mostly that kind of droning, ominous effect type things. I have this bass that kind of comes in right here with the drone. And if you notice, this bass also has some higher frequencies in there as well, so it can be heard through any speaker. I have this cool little effect here. I have a siren. This sample I chopped up, and these two little other sounds. Cool. So just setting the mood, you know, making it kind of cool and vibey. And then I also have this, I call this a monk because I think it was like it reminded me of like a monk vocal. Check this out. Fits in right well with the rest of the song. And I have this pad here that it's going to play throughout after. One chord. So good lesson here is you don't have to do crazy harmony and crazy production tricks, especially at the beginning of the show. If you watch a movie, again, I'm going to keep going back to the movie reference, right? If you watch a movie, sometimes there's a scene and there's one note, one drone playing in the background. That's totally cool. Being simple does not mean bad. Sometimes you need simple, especially at the top of a show, because if you come out with all this crazy stuff, yeah, it's really cool from a producer standpoint or, a music director standpoint, but then where else do you go from there? Because you got a whole other hour, 90-minute show to go from. So you got to, slowly bring people in. So just one note. We're in the key of the song, which is Baby Pluto. That's the first song on the of the set list. So again, one note. And on the second section is when we start to build everything. So let's just see what we got here. So right before that drops, I forgot to mention, I took his vocal. He's saying, "What the F was that?" And that is the beginning of me using elements from the song. If we remember from earlier in the video, I like to sprinkle in elements of the first song in it so that they kind of morph and really transition nicely into that song when it starts. And sometimes I'll filter things or use little bits and pieces, and that was one of them. All I did is I took his vocal,
Yo, what the fuck was that?
put some delay on it, and I pitched it also a octave lower. So together,
Yo, what the fuck was that?
really fits into the style of music, really makes it, a cool thing. People will probably recognize it and be like, "Oh, he's going to play Baby Pluto. That's cool. That's cool." Getting people hyped up. So now I'm going to take the main key sound of Baby Pluto and I'm going to filter it and make that the main focus of the song so that when the song starts, it builds, and then we get into the song. Something that I should mention for this specific intro is that usually when we're going to do a show, I will reach out to the mixing engineer who mixed every song and get multi-tracks, what we call multi-tracks. Essentially, what that is all the files for each individual song. So the kick drum, the snare, the lead vocal, the bass 2, guitars, and everything separated that they have. For this one, we weren't able to do that. But as they say, the show must go on, so we got to find a way to make it happen. So what I did is I ran it through a software called Extract Stems. There's a bunch of other AI softwares out there that you can use that would essentially make you put in a WAV file or an MP3 and it spits back out a drum stem, a vocal stem, a music stem, and a bass stem. So I was able to at least have the key sound so that I can use. And I was going to filter it anyways. So totally fine that I didn't. I mean, I prefer to have it, always prefer to have it, everything sent to me. But because we couldn't do it, we made this work. So check this out. Here's what it sounds like filtered in the beginning. And you can hear some of the artifacts in there, but as you'll see, when it's mixed in with everything, you don't hear it at all. And the filter will open up as we go through so that as it progresses, it grows. Check it out. Pay attention to the filter here. So it's going and it's going to keep on going. So that's the main thing that I built it around. So when that comes in, we have some percussion here, some ambient percussion. We have this little clock click percussion. Nothing crazy. That bass kind of keeps on going as well, following now the progression of the song that this key is playing. So check this out. Sorry. And I have a low and high bass. This low one. Again, we want to make sure that people can hear it through any speaker that they're listening to. And on this one, I had to really be careful because that bass sound, I guess you'd call it a respace, is not super commonly associated with trap or hip hop music. But because it's tucked in there, it still works. It's not the main thing. It's just kind of adding to the song. So that's something else to, be cognizant of is whatever sounds you're using, keys, bass, drums, whatever you're using, it has to fit the style of the music and the artist. Because that's a genre of music that they're playing. So we have the main keys, we have the bass, and then we have this pad, again, just following the chords. And a little plucky thing here. It's kind of arpeggiating in the background just to give it some movement. And I have this cool reverse vocal that I added. Adding some ambience to it. A couple little more effects over here, a little down sweep. We have another siren that comes in. Again, motif, right? You want to have things that people remember and that they call back on. So here's another siren. All fun. And the monk vocal keeps going. Playing the one note. Then we have a little ad lib here that comes in. Fun little thing that I chopped up. And then we go into the build section of the song, which we have more elements. And I should also keep in mind here that I did this in the same tempo as the song is in, which is 150 beats per minute, or 160, sorry, I should say. That's a good thing to keep in mind as well. You can start slower if you want and build up to the tempo, as long as it's not like you're at 130 and then when the song starts, it just jumps 30 BPM. That's a lot. That's going to be jarring to the listener. That's going to be a little weird. But as long as you get to that tempo when it starts, we're good. I've found that if you start slower and speed up, that works great. If you start faster and slow down, usually a little jarring, doesn't work as great. But again, every situation is different, but that's just what I found. So when we come in, we now have an 808. So we have this. Let's talk about the drums first. We have a stomp here that comes in, another stomp, and a little percussion. Added some ping pong delay in here, which is fun, just to kind of, keep it moving. Again, I know I'm going to keep saying this, but we're talking about some people are probably going to be listening to this in mono. For them, it won't make, as much of a difference, but we want to create some width in the mix and some space without it being like too crazy. And so I just did that just to give it some movement. Same percussion. Cool. And then we have a kick that is now going to follow an 808 that we're going to bring in. So check this out. So that respace that we had, now I've cut all the low end from that respace. Where is it? Oh, sorry. Oh, here on this EQ. This EQ here is going to come on, is going to turn on, if you can see that, when this comes in, because I want to make sure that the 808 is now the main focus of the low end. So this is still going to play, but as you're going to see, I'm going to play this. Watch how the low end changes from here to here. So that this 808 can come in. So now we have some 808s, which is a staple of trap and hip hop music. Sounds cool. The kicks are following me through. I added, again, distortion here. I love this distortion right here. This is not an, this is called BDE. Adding higher frequencies to the 808. I'll play it for you with and without it. So here it is with it. And now without. You see how much of a difference that makes, and within the mix, it's huge. It makes a huge difference. So adding those upper harmonics is great. We have this little pluck sound here. Adding some movement. I should note most of these sounds, with the exception of this one, I have Nexus on this one. Most of these sounds I made with Anna 2, or Anna 2, I don't know how it's pronounced. There was a cool pack that I found that had a bunch of these, trap hip hop kind of sounds that really fit Uzi Vert's music. So I found that and I used that little urban puncher here to give it some harmonic distortion, little echo boy, again, ping pong delay, moving it from side to side, create some space within the mix. Then we got this little bell hit here that comes in. It's almost like an impact. And we have some guitars. Two guitars. They're doing slightly different things. Here's the first one. Just picking some eighth notes. Dun, 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 dun. And then we have this like cool melody kind of guitar kind of thing. Here it is. And if you notice on those, I did pan them slightly because, again, the main thing is the sample, is not the sample, sorry, the key sound for Baby Pluto. Wanted to make sure that didn't get in the way. Reverse vocal again. Just a little louder. Again, holding that same note, the root note. And then we got some risers here. So that I've found, using risers and sometimes, especially when you're hearing things in a very loud context and in shows, using effects like risers and down sweeps and drones really brings things to life, and it really adds that movie element. When you see a movie trailer and it's got those like they call them like punch effects, where it's like something's hitting and it hits really hard. Those like Hans Zimmer movies. These really, really take it to the next level and build energy. They're awesome. I'll just play. There's just a couple risers that I stacked. And don't be afraid to stack risers. Just like how you would any drum sound or any synth sound, just stack them, see what sounds good. You don't have to use just one. Here's a little crowd noise just to give it some, little bit of ambience. And then now the monk vocal, I think, let's listen here, is now following the bass line and what we were doing before. And we got this little thing called Vox Hit. Let's see what that is. Again, just acting like an impact. Instead of using, the EDM impact hits that you normally would use, it doesn't really fit too well within this style of music. So I just figured out other ways to make it impactful and to give it the same feeling with using the appropriate sounds. And at the very end, when it builds up, we just got another stomp here, which is the one that I use right there. And then we got a little impact thingy here. And some other impacts. Let's listen to these soloed. Very movie trailer-like. And this one right here is literally called movie trailer long sub drop. And there it is. So notice it goes straight into it. Also something I should note, and I think I mentioned this a little while ago, I've committed these to their audio form, but all of these sounds are being filtered in some way. Because when you introduce something and it's filtered at first, and then when the song starts, it builds up and you get all the frequencies. It really makes it seem like something's growing and something's getting bigger, and it's got that intro type feel to it. If you go a little too high on it, I've found that sometimes, or you add too much at the beginning, I found sometimes that like when the song actually starts, it becomes like you went a little way too much. Like it feels, it doesn't have that same impact. It feels a little, unsuspenseful. So really keep that in mind. You don't have to overdo it. Sometimes all you need is one note. Sometimes all you need is one little thing. But as long as it's good and it sounds good to the audience, then that's all that matters. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you've enjoyed it and I hope that you've learned something. If you've liked the video, hit the like button, subscribe, and don't forget to leave a comment. And I'll see you on the next one. Until next time, much love.
Let's go!
Wake up beside my bitch. I got on that tissue. I need that juice.
Eternal tape.